Hey everybody, welcome back to FSi DFS. I'm McKinley 412 looking at the early slate 9-game. There is a 6-game later slate tonight. Mega Roar already has that video uploaded, so go check that one out when it comes time for that one. But looking at this here, 18 pitchers, 18 teams going, and honestly, there's a lot of depth on this slate, which is, I don't know, I feel like we haven't had a lot of large slates that have like a bunch of pitching depth as of late. So it's kind of a breath of fresh air. It's going to really spread out the ownerships, in my opinion. And there's lots of arguments to be made with, switching around the rankings that I have, personally here on the sheet. So I just go to that sheet. So in the high tier, I got Miller up at the top. Miller, Woodruff, Webb, Valdez, Gray. Gray's kind of like the leftover scrap of these five. But I do have Miller going number one. Now, there is a little bit of concern with Miller because he's not going to be going 100 plus pitches like a guy like Woodruff or even a guy like Valdez could. But I do like the cheaper salary on him by over 1,000 compared to Woodruff. I like the matchup a whole lot better. He is pitching obviously for a very hot and streaking Seattle team right now. So there's a good chance that he's going to be in line for the win. But like I said, his pitch count is pretty stagnant at, in the low 80s. Sometimes he might get into the upper 80s, but for the most part, he's pretty stagnant in this low 80s mark, going to be getting 5, maybe 6 innings pitched. But I think that with the strikeout rate, with the potential that he can bring, with the matchup, the salary, all that kind of stuff, I do have him ranked as my number one here. Woodruff, 10.2K, nothing wrong with this. If you want to say Woodruff is your number one, I would totally listen to that argument for sure. Woodruff can go 100 plus pitches. He's got a higher ceiling than Miller does. He's going up against the Cubs. Cubs, again, they've kind of been a streaky offense here post All-Star break, but there are strikeouts in that lineup to be had. So if Woodruff can kind of manage some of the home run issues that he's had as of late, check the weather in Wrigley. Maybe the wind is blowing in. I didn't get that far into my research, but if the wind's blowing in Wrigley, maybe I bump Woodruff up even over Miller in that regard. Other guys, Valdez and Webb, there is a little bit of weather, it looks like, in Boston that we do have to be paying attention to. However, when looking at like the precipitation and everything and the hour-by-hour forecast, looks like everything's going to be pretty good from here on out. So Valdez, he was phenomenal last start. We all know this. He went 7 innings pitched, no hits against. The concern I have with him is that he's usually pitching in like the upper 80s to low 90s. They had him going 114 pitches. That is an extreme change for his arm. When you're talking 20 to 25 pitches more than he normally pitch, many times, and quite often, we see regression in the start right after. They didn't give him any extra rest day. He's still on his 5 days of rest. So there is some concern there, especially going into Boston. It's that small park in Fenway. There's some concerns. Now, he is an extreme ground ball pitcher, which, kind of neutralizes some of the small ballpark effect. But it is still concerning how many pitches he did throw there. And we are going to be talking about the ballpark effect in that game when we get to Cutter Crawford. Logan Webb, he's fine. 9.5K. He's fine. I don't really have much to say really about him there. So going into the mid-tier, again, just a whole bunch of guys that I do have interest in. Gibson's probably going to be my top guy. Bibby's going up against a very heavy strikeout team in Minnesota. Green, he's got the upside, but he can also lack some floor. Bassett facing off against Washington. I think he can provide a solid floor. However, Washington just doesn't strike out a whole lot as a team. We kind of know that by now. And then Dylan Cease. It felt weird putting Dylan Cease at the bottom here, so I honestly might change it. I might put Cease even a little bit higher. Maybe I swap him and Green. But Dylan Cease, he has the upside. He's just a lot more expensive than the other guys, and he's got a brutal matchup going up against Baltimore. Cease is one of those pitchers in the majors where, like, when he's on, great. He is a fantastic DFS value. His strikeouts are there. When he is off, watch out. Like, the opposing team can easily put up a handful of runs, if not more. The control issues are another large concern with Dylan Cease. He's walking numerous guys every single start. You can kind of see it right here. It's bad. So Dylan Cease, that's kind of why I do have him ranked 5th, just all those things considered. And you're going to see once we get to the bats, I do actually have Baltimore, the opponent, as my favorite GPP play because of that. I already mentioned Bibby. He's going up against Minnesota, who strike out quite a bit. Green against San Francisco. He's kind of like Cease as well, like high strikeout possibility, but he can get erratic with his control. He can get shelled quite a bit as well in that regard. But I do think that Gibson's going to be my number 1. He's the cheapest of the bunch in this mid-tier. He's facing off. He's got one of the best matchups of any of the pitchers in this mid-tier going up against the White Sox. He can provide you a nice strikeout rate, provide you a nice floor. I'm not looking at the Seattle matchup. Like, Seattle's just torching everybody at this point in time. Excuse me. So I do think that Gibson is going to be my number 1 pitcher in this mid-tier. And honestly, I kind of really like him as an SP2 on this slate. Going into the lower tier, Sanchez, Detmers, and Crawford. They're really the 3 guys I do have some interest in. Honestly, I think I'm actually going to put Crawford over here into the no interest category, and we'll see why in a moment. Then the cheap tier, it's really Sanchez and Detmers are the only 2 guys that I have much interest in. Sanchez for Philly facing off against the Angels. What is this Angels lineup at this point in time? I'm not even sure. Mike Trout's back on the IL because he had soreness. They just released a bunch of guys, so IL's all over the place. Renfroe, he just got sent down. It's ugly. It's so ugly. I don't even know what they're going to look like when they put out their lineup. So Sanchez gonna be my number 1. He actually has some pretty decent stuff. Detmers also has some decent stuff, but he has really been struggling as of late. I think in like 3 of his past 4 starts, he might have like negative DK points. But over the course of the season, he's shown that he can have a solid strikeout rate. And this Philadelphia team, there are strikeouts in that lineup to be had. They're kind of like I'm gonna hit a home run or I'm gonna strike out kind of lineup. And Detmers, he can get those strikeouts, but again, he's really been struggling as of late, so he is not in solid form at all. Fades, no interest. So going and looking towards the bats here, top team is going to be Seattle, going up against Neal for Oakland, and really I'm going to be targeting both sides of the split, both sides of the plate here. It doesn't really matter, just lefties, righties, whatever. Pay attention to Julio Rodriguez, see if he's in the lineup. He was originally in the lineup last night, got scratched, so pay attention to that. But really after him, it's a very affordable team. Nobody's priced above 4.7K. Going up against Neal, going up against this Oakland bullpen. With how hot all of these bats are, Seattle's going to be my number 1. Number 2 offense for me is actually going to be Houston, believe it or not. They are quite a bit more expensive, as you can see, but they are going up against Cutter Crawford. Now Crawford, he's fine. He's a fine pitcher. However, Cutter Crawford is an extreme fly ball pitcher. Doesn't allow many ground balls, just balls flying through the air all the time. And he's going to be pitching at home in Fenway, small ballpark, especially with along the foul poles. And you can see it right here in the splits. An ERA close to 6 at home and an ERA around 2 on the road. So he allows a lot of fly balls. These Houston bats can certainly take advantage of that with the talent on their offense. So I actually do have them ranked 2nd on my favorite bats of the day. So Toronto, and just to clarify, like top doesn't mean like all of it. Like I really like Baltimore. I think that they're going to be they're probably one of my 3 favorite teams in terms of the bats. However, I think given the floor that they provide as well, because Cease, when he's on, like he can be dominant. Because of that, I do put them over into GPP. So like I have like Boston and San Diego here as like top, but honestly, if I was really ranking them like 1 through 10, I'd actually have Boston or San Diego probably more in like the 7, 6, or 7, 8 kind of range. I do like that, Philadelphia is facing off against Denver, who's really been struggling as of late. Now something's happening. Like he just fell off a cliff and can't really do too much as of late in his past couple of starts. So maybe Philly really takes advantage of that, and their upside is crazy. But again, their floor is not as great as I think Boston or San Diego, which kind of puts them over into the GPP. All right, so kind of got sidetracked right there, but Houston gonna be number one, number two. Toronto going up against Patrick Corbin, left-handed pitcher. Toronto can absolutely stack their lineup with righties. So really, all the righties are going to be in play. Danny Jansen, I think for catcher, is probably going to be like the quote unquote value play that you could be targeting on this Toronto team. Let's pull them up. What even is Jansen? 3.6K. Oh, yeah. Love it. So you'd probably be the guy that I'd be targeting. Vlad Guerrero honestly doesn't have great numbers against left-handed pitching so far this season. It kind of threw me off. I was talking to Megaror about it as well. It's like, am I looking at the wrong stats or something? Like, Vlad kind of struggles against left-handed pitching. But still, regardless, he's going to be a top option that you could be targeting here on this slate. Going into the GPP, Gunnar Henderson, he's going to be leading the charge of my Baltimore stacks. He's going to be the first guy in that I go with. O'Hearn for Baltimore, he can provide you some value if you do want to like pay up twice at pitcher. You could go that route, but really like if you're going to be jamming Baltimore GPP like a major stack, you're probably thinking that they're going to be doing really well. So their pitcher is probably going to be in line for the win, and their pitcher is Gibson. Like I already said, that Gibson's probably going to be one of my favorite like mid-tier plays. Where I was going with that, but yeah, O'Hearn very cheap. 3.4K, he can really open up a lot of salary. But Henderson, O'Hearn, probably going to be the first two guys that would be in my lineup. But you really can't go wrong with anybody else. I love this Baltimore lineup. And then Philadelphia, kind of already talked about them a little bit too, in terms of like they're very like, I'm either going to hit a home run or I'm really going to strike out. But there's definitely home runs in this lineup, guys who can mash left-handed hitting. Harper, Real Muto, Castellanos, probably the first three guys that I would have some interest in there. Cheap. Not a whole lot of cheap stuff to honestly like. Like San Francisco, yeah, but they pinch hit so much that's always a major concern. Oakland, they've been swinging the bat a little bit better as of late, but again, yeah, they're kind of there. Minnesota going up against Bibby, they just strike out so much. But again, like I do think that they're too cheap compared to like what their offensive talent is. So they do get a vote here in the cheap tier, but like. Not a whole lot to like. I'm really going to be keeping it up here. I think that there's enough depth at pitcher where you don't have to like absolutely punt bats by any means. Another cheap bat that you could be targeting for Houston, first base, Singleton. He's going to have a nice lefty-righty matchup. I think he's only like 2.6K or something. So he's another guy that you could be targeting for value if you do want to go there. Let me see if I can find him. I think he's 2.6. 2.4. He's even cheaper, even better. So again, nice lefty-righty matchup against Crawford. Like them there. So that's kind of where this slate shakes out. Again, it is an early slate, so get your lineups in time. Thanks for watching. As always, really do appreciate it. Please subscribe. We're trying to get to 5,000. It's going to take a while, but we're trying to get there. It's amazing the support that we've already received, but hopefully this video helped you out. Again, Mega Roller already has a video out for the night slate, so go check that one out as well. Good luck in your contest, and we'll see you tomorrow.